Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje. I don't think we have had a chance to talk about this fight. There's been so much talk and so much rumor mongering going on about UFC 300 and what's going to be the main event that we haven't had a chance to share our thoughts on this. Now, one of the biggest things that is rubbing me about this fight, it's keeping me awake at night, is that there should be more of a pushback from the fans, and this should be the first time this has ever happened, to get this fight cancelled, to make this fight not happen. I know that sounds crazy. Like, Doug, do we not love Max Holloway? Yes, I love Max Holloway. We love Max Holloway. He's a phenomenal fighter. Do you not think that Max Holloway is the best boxer in the UFC? I mean, he had a great night against Brian Ortega. He had a fantastic night against Calvin Kattar. But in the third fight with Volkanovski did piece him up. So he just by default can't be the best boxer in the UFC. But he's a brilliant boxer. Okay, so do you not love Justin Gaethje? Yes, I love Justin Gaethje. Do you not want to see Justin Gaethje make as much money as he can before he retires? Yeah, I do. I do want to see Justin Gaethje make as much as he can before he retires. Well, do you not want to see Justin Gaethje fight again? No, I definitely want to see him fight again. I'd love to see him fight on 300. So then what is the problem, Doug, you beautiful Australian bastard, I can hear you ask? The problem is, this is the kind of matchup that you would make with mates on a Saturday night when you're all sitting around drinking beers, eating pizza, and playing UFC 5. It's the kind of matchup that sounds good to Dana White in the war room on the blackboard when these people are just names on little cards. That's the kind of fight this actually is, right? But when you think about this fight, I expect the odds are, and I'm not going to check them, I can't be bothered, but I expect the odds are around the same as Nunes versus Pena, right? And we all know which direction the odds are going to be swinging in. It's going to be Justin Gaethje. And that's super disrespectful to Max Holloway, and I don't mean the disrespect. Again, I love Max Holloway. I think he's a phenomenal fighter. You know, Max Holloway he's the closest thing to a champion without being a champ. He's not a number one contender because he can't be a number one contender. He's fought for the title too many times. But I literally refer to people on this channel that are so good at being in that number two spot as Max Holloway's, right? Like, think about it. If Volkanovski didn't exist, think about how long Max would have been champion for. Think about his legacy if Volkanovski didn't exist. Max Holloway would be right up there with George St. Pierre. He is so good. And still, I would beg the fans to start this movement to try and call this fight off. The fans can do crazy things in this sport when they really put their mind to it. There's a chance we're going to see Dana White oiled up, right? There's a chance we're going to see that. But okay, so why do I want to get this fight sort of called off? Max Holloway is not an old man yet. Max Holloway is still, I think he's 32 years old, right? He is right there in his prime. He's not as young as Ilia Topuria, but he's right there. And there's this narrative that's been going around that if Max Holloway can just outweight Volkanovski, he will be a champion again. And that's true. Alexander Volkanovski is like 34 years old and on the late end of 34 years old. So Max Holloway is just a step behind him. He's been in the UFC for so long. I think we really forget just how young Max is. Again, 32 isn't young in the game, but it's right there in the peak era of when you can push for a championship. That means that Max has got another 2 or 3 years left to build up another legacy run as a champion, just like Volk has done from 32 to 34. Volk has built up a legacy for himself, and Max still has a chance to do that on top of everything that Max has done in the past. And here's the thing, look how torn up people are over this Ilia Topuria Max Holloway fight, right? Like, Volk is at the stage where he could lose and phase out, and Max is still there, perfect, ready to go, right? I mean, just look at who he's fighting next, yeah? Justin Gaethje is 35 years old, who should be making his championship push right now. As of right now, at UFC 300, it should be Justin Gaethje versus Islam Makhachev for the undisputed lightweight title. When they do that Saudi fight card, it should be Justin Gaethje versus Islam Makhachev. The next time Islam Makhachev is in there, it should be against Justin Gaethje. That's at 35 years old. He is right there. So Max Holloway is still young enough to have that push. And there is a contender in his division that is about to shake things up. So why does that matter so much? That is because Justin Gaethje is an anti-Max Holloway, right? The leg kicks and the strength that he can put on Holloway. We've all seen and heard Justin Gaethje talk about how he wants to have another Tony Ferguson performance. And Holloway has been through so many wars. He's been through so many wars as a champion. He went through that war with Volkanovski. He is just at the point where he's even getting touched up by the Korean Zombie on the Korean Zombie's last day at the office, yeah? Gaethje just did an interview where he talked about this, and he talked about how much he knows that his next loss is probably his last loss. Like, he knows that his career is on that knife's edge of either making all of his dreams come true or sort of just fading away. So Gaethje is not going to take Max Holloway lightly. And when Gaethje starts to control Max's legs, when Gaethje starts to put those combinations on Holloway, I believe that Holloway's legendary chin is going to hold up, which sucks, right? I think he's going to be going into this fight without that horrible weight cut that he usually has. And he's going to be feeling more alert and stronger in his brain, which means he's going to be able to sustain more damage than usual. And Max Holloway already sustains a lot of damage. And what he's going to do to himself in this fight is really, really hurt himself. And it's going to speed up that fight aging process immensely. Like, we've all played the UFC games when your character has that longevity bar in career mode and it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And this is one of those fights that's going to take a bunch off it because Justin Gaethje is going to piece up Max Holloway brutally. So this is what I see happening. I see Max Holloway going in there against Gaethje, getting the living piss beaten out of him. He's going to have to take off a significant amount of time. If Ilia Topuria does the unthinkable and beats Alexander Volkanovski, then you have got a young, hungry, undefeated 28, 29-year-old, full of confidence, Ilia Topuria, looking at a Max Holloway, now 33 years old because he had to take some time off from the Gaethje fight, who has just been pieced up by Volkanovski, pieced up by Justin Gaethje, had hands put on him by the Korean Zombie. It is not a good move for Max Holloway. I hate it. I hate this fight. I hate Holloway versus Justin Gaethje. I don't want to see this fight. I don't want to see the outcome of this fight. So can we please start some sort of a movement, right? Oil isn't enough for Dana White at this point. Oil isn't enough. We have to tar him with feathers or something. There's got to be something to get this fight called off. And unfortunately, UFC 300 needs a banger fight like this. Like, this fight just has to go there. It's the sort of fight that makes you look at it and you go, yes. But when you actually think about it, then you know that, oh no, this is bad. This is bad. This is one of those kind of fights. Like I said, it's one of those kind of fights that you talk about hypothetically with the boys and you have fun talking about it, but you don't actually want to see it. This is the worst fight on UFC 300. Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje is the worst fight on UFC 300. And yeah, I know who else is on UFC 300. I'm aware that Jessica the Andrade is on UFC 300. But at least when that fight's on, at least when some of the fights are on for UFC 300, you know that's the time where you can go take a shit, grab a beer out of the fridge, clean up some paperwork from the week, go check on the barbecue. It's the middle of the day in Australia when this happens, so we can do stuff during the fights. You know, like, there's things to tidy up around the house. There's the barbecue to handle, all that. They can happen during those fights on UFC 300. But Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway is the one where all the food is cooked. You got to be sitting on the couch, locked in, watching every part of that fight. And I am just going to watch one of my favorite fighters have years taken off his life for literally no reason. And then that means, right, for UFC 300, I'm going to be sitting there. If Volk loses, that means my favorite fighter will have lost his championship a month earlier and then a bloke that I've been watching for years and finally waited for him to be ready to step back into a title picture. Max Holloway has just had the living piss beaten out of him as well. It's going to suck. It is going to be a sucky, sucky month. So I'm not looking forward to it at all. At all. And I think we need to get it cancelled. Hashtag cancel UFC 300. Start the movement. That is the call. Think about it logically, guys. For God's sake, we need to save Max Holloway. He is too tough for his own good. That's my thoughts on that. Let me know yours down there in the comments. If you enjoyed this video at all in any way, you could say thank you by going ahead and hitting that subscribe button. Every single one means so much to small creators like myself. And of course, I'll see you all in the next video.